It's June 29th, 2013, and some of you are watching Mods on Air.
2 FPS, 3 RPGs, and 5 sim-type games.
Yeah.
I think you'll be able to come up with one here.
I'm actually pulling this one hard.
Ask all the people that need hacks to play Call of Duty. I can hear you groaning inwardly every time Sin's mentioned. You're just cringing.
Hey, welcome to episode 383 of Mods on Air, bringing you the weekend in gaming news as modders, developers, and gamers ourselves. I am foyleman, and also on the show today we have we have with us Ham. Hello, Ham.
Hello.
Hello, and we also have with us Stryder. How you doing, Stryder?
Hey, everybody.
So before we begin, let me remind you all that this show is recorded before a live audience. Some of you are actually here in real time, not virtual time. We may throw some topics into the chat window in case you care to follow along. We may not. Either way, you can go over to the website and you will find the topics when we release the show on YouTube and whatever other related channels we have. But there may be some explicit language or adult themes, so if you have some young children in the room, you should probably send them running with their hands over their ears. Yes. Okay.
Agreed.
So that's my disclaimer. Anybody have anything else they want to add? We can wrap up the show.
Fuck all y'all. Yeah, we can wrap
Windows
it up.
8.1 just screwed me. Just now.
Just now,
Windows
Windows 8.1.
Yes. The desktop is... Why my desktop? Come on. The desktop is completely black.
Hmm.
It's just everything just sort of
Well,
screwed
we
up.
still see you.
It's good. I'll figure this out.
Yeah, everything seems to be working so far. So on
Windows
our
8
end,
has
from what we can
determined
see.
that your video drivers are a threat to
Yeah,
government
national security.
integrity.
that your picture is a
Yeah,
threat.
the
to
NSA
those
has
out
been
there.
watching your...
Well, that update for Windows 8.1 just recently came out last week, right, or the week before?
Yeah, a few days ago. It's less than a week for sure. June something, 26th maybe.
Mhm.
When it became available, and I decided to put it on the laptop since this laptop isn't used for anything too important. And this is probably the first big problem I've had. All of a sudden, I guess the video driver crashed and restarted, and now everything's weird. So, don't put it on anything important. That's my advice for everybody. Probably just extends to Windows and Windows 8 in general, but I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's get on with some of the topics that we have here. Actual topics regarding game stuff. We'll complain more later.
Yes.
Ouya has finally hit the retailers, but they've done so at a cost to those people who actually gave them money before the retailers were supposed to have it. First of all, Ouya is released as they said that they would. Actually, they pretty much stayed on track, right? They said June. They released in June. That's pretty great for a Kickstarter. It's 99 and change, so it's $100, and it sells out instantly over at Amazon. However, one of the issues is that people who signed up to get it early didn't get it at all.
And that's sort of a big deal.
Yeah.
Nothing to take too lightly. I don't know. Is that okay? I know the CEO apologized, right?
Doesn't matter. So apologize all you want, right?
Yeah.
I gave you my money early because I wanted it early.
Very true. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I think I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're gonna get it eventually, it's fine. But it does kind of suck that you give the money early and then you get it late. I hope they can just sort of say, here's some free credit to the store, and it can sort of, I don't know.
If
be washed
it was
over.
me, I'd be saying, fuck you, give me my money back.
Yeah, I would too.
Would you?
Yep.
But why? Why?
Because obviously they failed to deliver on what they promised. In fact, they should be giving me my money back plus interest. I've financed your product and you've not delivered to me, period.
Good point.
I would be looking at lawsuitage.
Yeah, I would cancel too. I mean, I could have gone to Amazon and tried to get it then, or taken my risks. I wanted it early. That was the whole purpose of me giving you money early. And you're not going to take my money seriously, then I don't want you to have it.
But I mean, in the end, since they did launch, in the end, isn't it you that loses? In the end, I don't know.
How are you losing though? If it's that type of a company that's not going to provide you anything, how are you losing? They've said that they're going to do this. They failed to do this, yet they've gone around and done something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's like saying thanks for your money. Fuck you too. Here, I'm not even going to show you the door. You can figure that out on your own. But thanks for your money. And the best way for us to make money is to not deliver on what we're telling you we're going to give you, and go and sell your product to somebody else. Because that's essentially what they just did. And if you're not upset with that, then you're just asking to get kicked in the wallet again. Because that's all they're going to do is kick you in the wallet. Give you free credit for what? You've already paid for the console that they didn't deliver.
Well, once it arrives, you've got free games that you can choose to buy. I mean, okay, so if free credit wouldn't do it, how would they fix this?
They can't. Like, that's the thing. If you said, hey Stryder, I'm going to give you $100 and in 2 weeks you're going to give me something, and I turn around and say, hey, thanks for the $100, I'm going to go and sell this thing to somebody else, and then say, oh, sorry Ham, I just couldn't get it to you. How's that going to make you feel? You'd be like, give me my fucking money back.
It's a good point.
And
right.
And then I turn around and say, you know what, I apologize profusely, Ham, but I'm going to give you this nice credit for this future product that may or may not alleviate any of your sour tastes. But in the meantime, I'd like you to back me again on this other project that I've got going, where we're going to invent yellow squares. You gonna give me another $100?
Is that right?
No.
This is a prototype of a yellow square.
All right, it's a good point. Good point.
I gotta look that up now.
What
is that true? What Morphus has there? That Ouya, I see one there for $150.
they're flipping on eBay?
Yeah, they are, but they're not for the full amount, I guess. Because I just found one there for $90. But yes, they're flipping them out on over on eBay. Yeah, there's one there for $250. Brand new,
really?
Factory sealed. So maybe that's what Ouya is doing. Like, instead of sending you yours, I'm gonna try and sell it on eBay for more. And once that starts turning out to be a nice profit, then eventually you'll get yours.
The Kickstarter, this is the funny one. Ouya Android Game Console Kickstarter Edition, new in box, free shipping. Ouya, thank you for believing. How did they get a Kickstarter edition?
That's a really good question.
I got one. I don't know what you mean.
Oh, is it? I mean, but yours is not the final console.
No, mine is clear. Looks like clear plastic instead of this silver and black. Mine's like the dev kit.
Okay. Although, in theory, even the retail version is supposed to be a dev kit one, right?
I don't know.
Probably have to
They can't see
look
through
into
it.
that. So that's one flaw. No. But I mean, even this, even though it's been released and it's sold out, which I gather is a good thing. It's released to some sort of iffy reviews so far. No one's given it absolute praise just yet. And I've read at least 2 reviews that have said it's got great potential, but potential that's It's got to do a lot of work to reach.
And that's all because of the games that are available?
Partly because of the games that's available, partly because of the interface.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, how can you go wrong with an Android-based interface?
Well, it's got a weird sort of like
sarcastic
Xbox / I don't know, PlayStation 3 type UI. And one thing that was noted on at least 2 reviews that I've read maybe 3 or 4, was that you cannot just buy a game. You have to download the demo, because it's sort of mandated that every game must have a free demo. You can't, because of that, you can't actually buy a game. You have to download the demo first and then purchase the game from within the demo. And of course that means that there's not the greatest amount of consistency, because each game may do something slightly different in terms of how you purchase the full thing. So you've got that. There were complaints about the controller. For some games, there's some lag present. It's sort of weird how you have to the 2 different slots for the batteries, where you take batteries out and put them in, which
one on the left, one on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of dumb.
Was that true? I can't remember now. Okay, yeah.
But the other thing that people did say was that, but it's relatively easy to pair an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3 controller with it, and those I haven't heard any complaints about those. So it's kind of wild that third-party controllers work better with the console than a native one. But maybe that's what they're hoping, is that people are just going to sort of already have those consoles or those controllers available to pair them. And then the other thing was, the games. That there were some gems in there, but there weren't a lot of great games knocking down your door.
No, they're phone ports.
Yeah, a lot of phone ports. So, and that's what I expected at the start, just because it's easy. It's the least amount of work possible, and you can get your game on another platform. Why not just sort of port it and do the least amount of work as possible?
Yeah, I agree.
But then there are some games that are exclusive. Something called Towerfall that everybody seems to be loving. It's sort of a retro arena shooter type game, and it looks fun, and it's exclusive. And as far as I know, that takes advantage of the console, not as a machine to port Android games, but as an indie development console. So I'm waiting to see more things treated as its own console, not as a machine to port existing mobile phone games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
there's some interesting exclusives. I'm gonna risk it, and I'm gonna open up my downloader and download some interesting little stuff that I just noticed, like an exclusive for Ouya, which is kind of funny, I guess. I don't know. Should you? All right, I just downloaded it. Now let me figure out where it went. Here you go.
Loki wants to start Ragnarok ahead of schedule, but the party don't start until he says so. Soul Fjord. Sent by Odin himself, this righteous warrior's doling out some serious justice. Feral giants,
like Shaft.
Smooth trolls, disco wizards. They're throwing everything they got at him. Too bad for them. He's already dead. From the makers of Quantum Conundrum comes a new game exclusive to your Ouya. Discover a new kind of video game console. Soul Fjord.
Only on Ouya.
So, we'll see. I mean, if we get more games like this,
like that.
Well, I should say more games that aren't treating it as a mobile porting device.
Who's that zombie what loves all the brains? Shaft.
They don't necessarily have to be exclusive to you, but just something that says that this is not a second class console. So I'll probably get one.
It's a straight up phone game on your TV. That's what all of them are for. You're not gonna get quality. You're not gonna get AAA titles on here. It's not gonna happen.
I don't know. Well, I hope. My hope is that you're wrong. That's my hope, because I'd like to see it
AAA
take
titles
off.
aren't going to make any money off of developing for the Ouya.
I think
It's going to be like B grades. Ain't going to be single A titles. It'd be like whatever that horror movie was that we went and saw. It's going to be like that.
Oh, that's like, that's
There's
low
something
three.
dead.
That's.
Well, I do think if you have a AAA game in mind that you're developing and you're targeting the Ouya, I think you're probably doing it wrong. You probably should be targeting other platforms. But I think for independent developers who want to experiment, who want to do something that's quality but not at such a grand scale, this is something that hopefully you'd want to look at to release on. I know it's something I definitely want to take a closer look into to see if there's something I want to do, something weird or goofy, something small that'd be worth $1 to release it on it. But we'll see. The first thing I'm going to be doing is looking for a sale or something. I'm not going to pay $100 for it. I want to get it for a little bit less.
So what does that say though? If you want to, I want to develop for this, but I ain't paying $100 for the console.
Yeah, it says I'm cheap.
No, it says that there's not a lot of value to this console. You see it as a potential to make some money in the future, but there's no value to the console. And that is the problem. That's what happened with that other one that they were giving away for free, and now it's gone bankrupt. It's because there was no value to that. There was no value to that console. It was a service that in theory would have worked fantastic. However, they couldn't implement it. And now then it went tits up. It's cloud gaming, streaming gaming. All it's really doing is saying, hey, we can play phone games on your TV. Just because you might not be able to have Bejeweled. You just can't get through that extra 5 minutes of commercial times without firing up and playing Bejeweled. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to get quality games. I'm not belittling indie games, and I'm not belittling the efforts that people have made for developing these casual games, these little games. But really, if I'm paying $100 for something and then having to pay more money for a game, even if it's $1, I mean, I can buy a phone and play that same game, and I can actually with the way hardware interfaces go now, I can use my phone as a controller and watch it on my TV if I wanted to.
And you can bring it with you. You don't have to. You're not stuck to your TV.
Right.
Exactly. And it doesn't make sense. And this whole cloud-based gaming and streaming gaming, it does not make sense. It's a way for developers to charge more and give less. Is all this is. It's a way for the industry to charge more, provide less, and for whatever reason, consumers are lapping it up because it's the newest thing. You know what? Just because it's new doesn't make it better. Doesn't make it of value. There's no immersiveness that's going to happen with an Ouya box.
Well, here's the thing. I think you're right. I think you're making great points, and I think that's going to be the challenge. The challenge is going to be proving sort of what you said wrong. Not necessarily proving what you said wrong, but more so showing there's some value here, and that it's worth paying $1 or more for, and that's what it's all about. So I think you make great points, and it's going to be up to the developers to try to sort of say, hey, this is the reason you should invest $100 here, because this game is probably worth it. These sets of games are probably worth it, and that's what I hope to see. But I think you're making really good points.
That Ouya box needs to have like a window on the bottom, and you can actually pick it up, turn it upside. Ask it a question like a magic ball, and just flip it up, and the answer floats up. And thank you, Ouya. You've proved your usefulness once again today, and set it back down.
Was this worth $99?
I
Ask
just
again later.
I do ask again later. That would be all these people that weren't alive to know what a magic 8-ball is.
Okay, well, Sony's also trying their hand, though. Sony with the PS Vita. I remember seeing it all over at E3, and they're trying to push it a little bit more again now with their Sony. What are they calling this? PS Vita loves devs, or Sony loves devs, or something like that. Basically, what they're trying to do is increase. They're trying to get indie developers over there. They're trying to say. They're tempting. They're trying to tempt these indie developers to program for the PS Vita.
Again, if they're going to tempt people to develop for that, people already have the Vita. It's got I'm doing the little quotey things here, AAA titles available on it. So adding indie to that isn't a bad move. Right. But to develop and I'm going to flip back to the Ouya again. You've got something that is 100% for indie. You're not going to see AAA jumping onto that.
Right.
But big companies, they have this this affinity for wanting to squeeze money out of their users so much that if the Ouya all of a sudden does become successful, I'd argue that you'd see a lot of AAA developers jumping on board all of a sudden, just because they really go to where the money is. They've got no shame in that.
But look what happened. Call of Duty tried that with the Call of Duty Wii game.
That's true.
Did that release?
Oh yeah, it released.
They
Where did it go?
a few.
Where did it go though? Right into the fucking bargain bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the people that bought Wii didn't want to play Call of Duty on the Wii. Like, it's just
wrong audience.
It's just tough. It's just tough.
It's tough. They're in a position where they don't have a great advantage. I'd like to see it succeed, though. I really would. Not only because I think some innovative things can potentially come out of it. It has the potential for innovative things to come out of it, but sort of almost because I'm a bit selfish too. I want to see this as a platform that I want to release stuff on, and maybe sort of point to something and say, hey, I got a game on the Ouya, and not feel sort of ashamed about that, and be like, yeah, you should pick that up. So,
well, then,
go
on.
I was just gonna say, as far as the Vita goes, from what I understand, it's not selling all that well. But I've got a friend who had it, and it's a really impressive little device. I mean, just absolutely,
I have one.
Blown away. So it's amazing
impressive,
for what it is. Yeah.
That's the one where you couldn't play any games if you weren't connected to the internet or something.
Actually, I turned it on when I went to the airport, and it said you had to sign in order to play a game. And I was but I was signed in. I had to turn this off because the pilot told me to turn it off. Now what do I do?
I already talked about that. Yeah. As far as Sony picking up independent developers, I'm not sure if I said this a few weeks ago or not, but apparently they're really serious about this. I've got a friend who I sort of go back and forth with, game developer talk with, and he said that a few weeks ago he had a meeting with Sony to get his game that he's making. It's sort of like a retro RPG, trying to emulate like SNES graphics, and that's possibly going to be on the Vita or the PS4. So, and I quote him, they are really serious about getting indie developers.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So,
but as you stated earlier, really, as a developer, what you want to do is target as many devices as possible. You don't want to get stuck with just one.
Right. Very true.
There is another game engine out there, though, if you're interested. It's called Anarchy, I think it is. Actually, the game engine is, it's called the Havok Vision engine. and it's supposed to be very pretty looking. That you can produce for iOS, Android, and Tizen platforms. I don't know what Tizen is. Tizen. Anybody ever hear that one?
It sounds like a mobile OS, but I could be wrong.
Now, what the big deal about this is it includes Havok physics, which is why it's the Havok Vision engine. There you go.
Hi, I'm Nick Gray. I'm the European developer on this device, and Pascal just
Tizen is a
get a
Norwegian
long view of the sort of draw distance that
mobile
you still have.
phone.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that you can see actually on the device, and then we'll now show you some
Looking at it briefly, I'd say it could compete with the Unreal demos that they have.
Yeah, it looks almost like that Unreal Citadel demo.
Right.
Play the game in engine, very fast prototyping then, and you can see all the effects that we have here, particle effects, lighting, collision detection obviously, and the characters running around the scene, and then of course we might find some baddies here.
So let you know that this is available out there, and it's available for a pretty good price. It includes the entirely free license to ship your game. Completely, project is a complete end-to-end game engine for mobile. Where did I put the
So we can show some of the
cost
where you might want to add another asset to the scene. We go to the asset viewer there. And
licensing? There is some licensing, but I think it's based on your shipping. So
and then when you
yeah, they have a free version and a pro version. I think it is.
But maybe we'll make it a bit more interesting and add on a component to that. If we add on a rigid body,
Something to look at, something to consider.
Yeah. Doesn't seem too bad based on what I'm saying in that video.
And that will be a fully dynamic rigid body running.
Decent looking editor.
Falls over.
Yeah.
And it's really that quick for rapid prototyping and iteration times. So one of the other components we have, of course, is the
However,
AI,
note that if you're going to be developing on this, you're only going to be developing for mobile. This doesn't state anything about release, being able to publish this to, say, a browser or something like that.
So, yeah, that's an important note.
Make a start, some position in the nav mesh, and then put the
Or Vita.
somewhere else, and the path will automatically be found.
Should do that too. Okay.
Through the nav mesh, avoiding all the obstacles as we move.
Boom. Pathfinding automatic? Wow, they put some pathfinding AI in there. Pretty good. A lot of little companies, these little tools, don't actually do that. But there is somebody else that's releasing some tools here. We have, let's see, Project Anarchy. Guild Wars 2 API has opened up to the community, which means that the community can start building tools and stuff to mod the game.
And I briefly read this about this before the show, and it seems like exactly what people have wanted. I know you haven't played too much of Guild Wars 2, Foyle, but
No.
me and Stryder know how sort of important it is to know where these sort of events are starting and where they're at and how soon they're going to start and all that stuff. And based on what I read, this seems like some really good stuff.
Well, hold on. Are you saying this thing will predict the future? What are you referring to?
It can also, I see a positive potential. I also see a negative potential here. If you get too many different queries because basically you can query dynamic events, and there's only a couple reliable sites that are doing that now, and because the events work on a timer,
right.
They rely on people reporting that the event is started or just finished, and then it resets the timer to a potential spawn window and so on and so forth.
Right.
If you get apps that are available to ding that on a constant basis, you could end up with potential server lag with too many queries back to that server on when is this event starting? When is this event starting? When is this event starting? When is this event starting?
Right.
And it keeps doing that every second until, hey, event started. I'm going to send out the thing that the event started. And then it just instantly goes back to when is this event starting? When is this event starting?
Right.
So it's going to potentially drag everything down.
Yes.
The positive side of it is it's going to allow for the development of perhaps more reliable applications for querying those events. What I'd like to see is this go to the point where it can start opening up and we can start developing some maps and missions and things like that. However, I doubt that's going to happen.
It says
At least not at the start.
The article indicated that this opens up a place, a way for people to develop the tools to develop those. So it's not even not even actually developing mods yet. I don't know.
And for people who've got no clue what we're talking about, Guild Wars 2 is an MMO that uses a dynamic event system as opposed to a quest-based system. So those are the events we're talking about. And sometimes it can be anybody's guess as to when a dynamic event is going to start. So that's what that's about. But Stryder, there's a potential that they could implement things in such a way where it's like you sort of send a query to say, hey, let me know when this event starts, and then the server can push out an update to say, hey, this is one of the things you want us to send you an update on to check to tell you when it started, so it pushes out rather than sort of constantly having to check the server.
But that would rely on the developer allowing you to modify their server, and I don't see that happening. The server's not going to send out a note.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to query you have to continuously query that server to find out when that happens.
I guess it all really comes down to how smartly they do it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know. We'll have to investigate and see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm getting bored of the game, in all honesty. Unfortunately, it's just there's nothing new coming up, and every events that everything that they're releasing is just more go here and grind. Okay, now go here and grind. Okay, now go here and grind. There's nothing compelling about it, and it's starting to become redundantly boring for me. And it could just be because you and Breezy are never on and Foil's never on, or that it's summer and it's nice out. It could be any of those things, right?
Well, I've had to reduce my playtime to probably once a week, more or less once a week on Sundays. I still find the combat system to be great. I feel it's very well done, and I did read that they were going to start doing bi-weekly updates. So that's got the potential to bring a lot of small negligible changes or some good stuff.
The problem with what ArenaNet has done with their updates and that type of thing, they release the content and they think everybody's going to get all involved in this, and unfortunately what it is it turns into a who can get this the fastest so I can put it up on the trading company to make the most gold off of it. This most recent event is a perfect example of that, where the day the content was released, people were on there playing for hours, and of course their drops weren't balanced either, and so they ended up with like 5 or 6 or 7 sets of these dragon wings dropping in an hour. Mm-hmm. And so they've got those in their banks, and then ArenaNet's like, whoa, these aren't supposed to drop that much. Cut that drop rate way back, and then the dragon wings, unless it came on a drop, you had to farm for like God knows how many hours. There's like 100,000 of these little candies, so that's not going to happen. So everybody's looking to buy them on the Black Lion. So they were going for like 60 and 70 gold, and then you turn around, now the event is just about done. 2 weeks later, they're down to 4 gold. They're down, and they're dropping 3 gold, 2 gold. Like they haven't done themselves any favors, because all they're doing is saying, here, grind this because we couldn't come up with anything inventive. 100,000 candies is 100 play hours, give or take, just to get a set of wings. Where these people are getting them dropping, they're just sitting there rolling in the gold. So this whole API releasing that API, I think what it's going to do is it's going to create a way for the gold farmers of the world to make their job easier.
Certainly might. It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, my hope is that something great comes out of it, and not just these timers or things like, or tools to make gold farmers make their job a bit easier. But I don't know, it's just something inventive. I don't have the answers. I don't really have any ideas. I think the base action for Guild Wars 2 was so good for me as compared to other MMOs that it lasted throughout the entire sort of campaign, going from the starting area all the way to the final area of the game, and even post that, like going back and playing dungeons and doing all these things. It was all fun. Months ago they released this thing called Fractals of the Mist. And for people who don't know what that is, it was a collection of sort of mini dungeons that sort of get randomly tied together, and it was fantastic. A big challenge, and it was probably one of the most innovative things that I've seen in an MMO in terms of I guess you would call it in-game content that I've seen in a long time. And I'd like to see more stuff like that, even if they just extend the sort of Fractals of the Mist, just keep giving us these random pieces that get tied together. Maybe do something a bit more with that. They've got a great base, but they've got, now at this point, they've got the potential to be stagnant or push it forward. And sounds like you're saying, Stryder, that right now they're kind of being stagnant. And that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And I'm not getting down on the game or anything like that. It's just I am seeing a lack of creativity. It seems that they're just it really feels like they're just going through the motions. They're forcing people into world versus world. So when a game starts forcing people to go to multiplayer, it means that they've come up with nothing. They've hit a wall creatively, and they're not looking at any other way to climb up that wall or to come up with a solution. It's just like, oh, we'll just push them into this direction and get longevity there.
Yeah, and which I don't particularly like too much, because I did not like the multiplayer.
No.
Which is multiplayer, competitive multiplayer, I should say, since it's MMO. Guild Wars 1, I did like the multiplayer, because it felt more like an arena shooter, arena FPS, like Quake or Unreal Tournament, where everybody has access to the same stuff, and you go from there. And they've got a mode like that. It's not the world versus world mode. It's just the straight PvP. But even there, well, I guess if I were to be honest, I haven't given it too much of a chance. But there, everybody has access to the same stuff. Armor doesn't really matter. And I would probably like that. I should probably play that a bit more or give it another chance. When I did try to play that mode, it seemed like there was so much in terms of the setup before I actually start the game, like what items I wanted and all this other stuff. And by the time I was ready to play the game, I was just like, I'm over it already. But I'd almost like to see a mode where some of these MMO games where there's no armor, there's no I don't know, everybody has access to the same exact abilities. Like there's a small collection of skills, and there's a collection of weapons, and they all sort of work the same way no matter who has them. And so it works like a MMO combat / arena shooter.
With classes really like or without?
With no classes at all. The weapon would probably determine sort of how you're playing. In the same way that I guess Quake works, and I keep going back to Quake because it's probably my favorite game, but it's people's play style sort of varies depending upon the weapons they have, because certain weapons are better suited against other weapons, and all that fun stuff. But I totally dislike the whole thing where somebody has better armor than me, so that's 90% of the reason why they won. Or they sort of popped a health potion just as I was about to kill them, and they ended up killing me. I totally dislike that stuff. It doesn't work for me. That's all I've got to say about that.
All right. Well, Morphus, a few questions back, asked us, what was that? He wants to know more about games where the creativity runs dry. So, on that note, Battlefield 4 is coming up with some new details on their Commander Mode and something they're calling Levolution, which I don't think necessarily ties in with the actual what's going on. It means that the game will evolve over time in the multiplayer. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But this has nothing to do with leveling up. It has something to do with the level changing as you're playing it. Whereas in you build, like they put a flag on the top of a building, but you can destroy the building. Now the flag gets moved. Therefore, the gameplay changes.
Ooh.
Hey, haven't we seen modes like that before?
I don't know.
It almost sounds like Rush, where you protect you protect a certain sort of stronghold or location
until it gets dead.
Yeah,
and then you move somewhere else.
Yeah, because there is no way to win Rush as a defender. They designed it, and you know what? They came straight up and said that they designed it so that as a defender, you're always going to lose Rush, or else the game becomes stagnant.
Yeah,
your job is to slow them down
before time runs out, and try to slow them down to the point that that time runs out before they can get to the last MCOM station. I think is what they're called. I like the idea of Rush.
They're nothing new though.
Nope. And on the other side, if you're looking for some Call of Duty Ghosts gameplay, you got Jimmy Fallon and one of the Hobbits playing the game.
And one of the Hobbits, Breezy.
Elijah Wood.
One time, a boy and his dog joined a war. Don't shoot your own dog. Don't shoot your own dog.
I wonder what would happen. I wonder if it even lets you. Probably doesn't even let you do it if you try.
But you can kill people. That's great.
I just remodeled that bathroom. Now you were saying that this dog is actually they use these in real life, like soldiers.
This
blah blah blah. Okay.
Really? Yeah. Blah blah blah. This game has zero creativity attached to it. It is the same. How can I say this? It is the same publicity-driven piece of shit on a disc that they force-fed you last time and the time before.
Well, the
time before.
I'm not sure I agree with you. There's a dog this time. Come on.
There was a dog before. There was a dog in World at War. Don't you guys remember? You hated those fucking dogs?
Yeah, they were terrible.
There's nothing here.
This time you play as the dog.
And you know what? The proof is that they keep going to all these other media outlets to try and get more and more hype for less and less content.
Yeah,
a dog.
I watched, I think, almost all of that Jimmy Fallon bit where he plays Call of Duty, and I want to say over half of that gameplay was him playing as a dog. It was stupid. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anything other than that to say, but it was pretty dumb. It's like, oh, you get to play as a dog now.
You know what the outcry is going to be is there's going to be a multiplayer mode where you can play as the dog. 100% play as the dog.
Everybody's playing as the dog.
They're going to be dog fighting arenas, and there's going to be, was that LeBron James was the that got
I
busted
think
for
it's the
the.
guy.
You know, it's
Or no, maybe somebody else. I don't know.
no, it was an NFL player. I don't think it was a
Yeah.
basketball player. Anyways, regardless, that's what the big outcry is going to be this time. Last time it was the no Russian killing all the innocent people. I think I can't remember. There's been so many hype trains that, but that's what it'll be. Right before release, there's going to be an outcry, or right after release, that the dogs and the dog fighting arenas, it's animal rights, and I see it coming. I see it coming. Exactly. You're going to unlock studded collars.
Yeah, probably.
New camo skin unlocked. Howl of terror.
And because there's no mod support or anything, once the PR comes knocking, or the news and everybody else with the bad press, they're gonna just rip it out. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, they'll put the hot doggy treat mod in. Won't be hot coffee. It'll be the hot water bowl.
Maybe they can have like instead of landmines, they have like the dog says crap.
Dookie mines. Dropping deuce.
Okay.
Right now, Infinity Ward is writing all this down. They're like, "Fuck, this is gold, man." We were so out of ideas.
Well, then you've got the people who used to make the Call of Duty game. You know, the couple of guys who went off to make Respawn Studios, Vince and whatever, and West.
What happened to that lawsuit?
I don't know. Who cares? I think they settled out of court. But they're going on talking about Titanfall as the game that they're working with, and it is not going to have any single player because only a small percentage of people will ever finish it. So why should we even bother?
It's not that they won't finish it. The problem is most single player has no replayability. So people, this whole comment just, to my mind, shows the contempt that developers have for their clientele. They put out a single player game that is most of the time very lackluster. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, single player modes are very lackluster, or they have to have good writing and good developing and something that's going to make you want to play that again. The only time a game has replayability nowadays with these grind outs, these games that are released on an annual basis, is by having multiplayer. And even then, the multiplayer is so horrible in a lot of these games that it doesn't have replayability either. So what this statement pisses me off. The small percentage will finish it, and it's not that at all. It's if you're going to develop a game and not put any effort into single player and just throw it like, ooh yeah, you go through here and shoot some guys, and really, what are you saying? Our game has no potential for single player. We're going to develop it strictly for multiplayer, and even then, it's probably not going to have that much replayability. It's going to be the players that'll have its fans, and that'll be it.
Mm-hmm. I commend them for this, for just not developing any single player. Too often, we see single player as an afterthought, or we just sort of what they say in the article is just that you've got a separate team for single player, and they've got to design things a bit differently just around a single player philosophy, and it turns out that a lot of people are here just for the multiplayer anyway, or I mean they give the single player a try almost just to say they tried it, and after that it's straight to the multiplayer. A lot of people say Battlefield 3 that the multiplayer or the single player was pretty terrible. I don't know, a few levels in, I thought it was pretty good, but the moment I started multiplayer, I just never went back to single player. Mm-hmm. The real fun for me was in the multiplayer. Even as great to me at least as the single player looked. It just wasn't compelling enough after having that multiplayer experience for me to go back and finish it. If they want to spend all their time focusing on multiplayer, I'd say good, because that just says to me that you're not going to force a single player that was going to be lackluster, and it's not going to, and we're going to probably end up getting more out of the multiplayer as a result of that. With that said, I'm still not necessarily digging this, because this looks so much like Call of Duty Future Warfare.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? It feels that way based on the limited stuff I've seen. I hope I'm wrong. I am going to give it a chance. Hopefully there's some sort of demo or beta that I can try.
I would test it that way.
I don't believe that they'll be doing that.
But I don't want to test it with my $60.
This is EA.
Yeah. I don't want to test it with $60.
This is EA.
Yeah, so there's a chance they might just say deal with it.
You're gonna have to purchase it on
Origin,
the EA Origin, and use the EA Origin matchmaking and all that fun stuff. No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in another Call of Duty game.
EA's going to use it to force their new Origin ideas. Did you notice that in the news, that Origin wants to reestablish itself as a service?
Yeah.
So did the EA Store. That's where Origin came from.
Right.
Rebranding.
This is also from the publisher that has said, we're going to microtransaction everything you do. Yeah. What is this game going to provide you?
It's a service.
It's going to provide you a whole shitload of pay to win.
I can see that for a game like this.
Yeah, I could too.
Here's the thing. Origin, they tried to position Origin as a Steam competitor, but what it ended up being was this software that they locked a lot of their hotly anticipated games behind, and that's all it was. It wasn't something people wanted to start up because it didn't offer anything compelling. Whereas Steam gets some flack because in and of itself it is DRM. It does restrict sort of how you play, but that's offset by the amount of services it offers that are actually an advantage to players. Origin offers none of that, and it just locks these games behind a wall. It locks these games behind a certain store. So it stopped being a service and became more so this software that you start up to play the game you want to get to. And that's all it was. And the only reason it's got as many users as it does is because they've got, like, you can only sort of play Battlefield 3 through Origin. You can only play, I don't know, whatever other game, Dead Space 3 or Star Wars or something.
The two big games that gave them any sort of a boost was Star Wars: The Old Republic and Battlefield 3.
Yeah. And those games required that you had to have this account. And the odd thing was you could not purchase Star Wars: The Old Republic without an Origin account. Yeah. So there you go. It's weird.
The good thing was you did not need to be running Origin to play Star Wars: The Old Republic. Whereas with Battlefield 3, it was quite the opposite. You had to buy it through Origin, and it was mandatory that it was running, and you had to run this other piece of shit matchmaking service. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
So for me, I mean, a lot of people complain that, like, you know, they didn't want, it's just almost on a principle thing. It's like, hey, you all don't need to make Origin as a service. Steam works pretty well. I thought there were some arguments for and against it. You don't want Steam to become this monopoly, which it almost sort of is. Thankfully, there's so much competition though now. But a lot of people were just like, hey, you don't need to do this. I don't want to have another program running. For me, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna try to mind it too much. I'm just gonna sort of think of it as this service that I have to run to play certain games, and but that the thing is, that's all it remained, was just that the service. Here's the service I have to run to play the games I want to play. It didn't become this thing that's worth keeping on.
What would make it worthwhile at this point? You think a whole, like, a chat system that your friends keep bothering you with? That's going to make you want to keep it on?
I mean, that it probably would go some way towards it. Although for Steam, actually, even though I keep Steam open, I actually turn the friend system off most of the time now. It I don't know. I don't quite know. But I'd say one thing to start doing is maybe just wholesale copy everything that Steam is doing and start from there, and then maybe do something else. Copy everything Steam's doing, copy everything the Ubisoft software.
That's what I was going to say. Is the best thing about Steam is that it's got a vast catalog. It hasn't locked itself in and said, you know what, we're only going to offer games that are published by Valve. We're only going to offer games that are published by Activision or anything like that. Whereas EA is saying, you know what, we have to do this. And because they did it, then Ubi's trying it. And, everybody's trying to get their own software out there or their own mode of getting it to them. Whereas Steam tried to stay ambiguous and said, you know what, we're going to offer whoever, whatever. If you want to put your games on here, as long as you play by our rules, then yeah, you're good to do it. The best thing that Steam does is they stay unobtrusive. They're not forcing you to run a browser at the same time as your game. They've got the Steam app runs. It's not a big memory footprint, and done. And the second you're playing a game, nothing else is happening. Whereas with Origin, if you are running Battlefield 3 and Origin is running, because it has to be, if there's an update or a patch for another game in your library, it'll download it. It doesn't care. It doesn't care that you're playing your game. It's just like, oh, we're going to do it because, hey, we're EA. Fuck you. Steam has gotten good at being as unobtrusive as possible. They don't provide unnecessary services, and the services that they do provide, you can turn on and off, i.e. the auto updates to games, i.e. the friends system. Most people are buying a game because they want to play that game.
Right.
Not because they want to, sit there and chat with Origin open just so I can social network. There's a bajillion other things out there in the world for social networking. You don't need a game service to do that for you.
Yeah. It all, for as much as they want to become a service, as much as I'm saying that maybe they should copy Steam wholesale, there's probably an argument for them doing the exact opposite thing. Don't try to become a service. If you want to sort of become this thing that only sells EA games, like big EA games, become, like you said, Stryder, almost just unobtrusive as possible. Make it extremely lightweight, the client, so that it takes up no memory in the background. It does the minimum that it needs to do, and just make it sort of a game launcher and in your library, where you can browse your library, launch the game, make it open very fast, and stay silent. And
that's the thing. And there's so many digital delivery services out there now. If you want to publish your own game and you want to have your delivery service, that's fine, but don't make it obtrusive. And that actually still to date is my biggest beef with Origin, is that it's an obtrusive piece of software that's not required. It has zero need. And the development of Battlefield, by taking the matchmaking or the server finding out of the game and putting it into a Flash-based browser, it was horrible. It was a horrible move.
Have they learned anything?
Have they learned anything? Is that going to change with Battlefield 4? Probably not.
Nah.
Because they want to force you to use Origin.
That's the one thing I disagree with a lot of people on, is that I thought the server browser-based system was great. If you could use the server browser and not use Origin, that'd be perfect. I don't need to keep Origin open. If I feel like playing a game of Battlefield, I go to this website that I bookmarked. Basically the same way that Quake Live does it. Whereas I don't have to keep anything extra open for Quake Live. I just sort of turn my browser to quakelive.com and I browse games, double click, it launches a game, I'm in there. And some people have problems with that too.
If I'm in the game, though, Why would I not just be able to click a button in the game? The server browser is going to run on that same flash in the game. I don't have to close out the game. I don't have to run anything extraneous. I can just say, you know what, I'm in the game already. Why do I need to close the game to find another server to relaunch the game?
That's a good point. Good point.
It's not a well thought out process.
I thought one of the good things was that there was, by having a web interface, which they could, you're right, they could easily do in game. They could just sort of open up a frame and have the web interface there. But one thing I thought was like, if they do it this way, they can constantly update the server browser with all sorts of new features and filters, which is something that I saw them constantly doing once Battlefield 3 came out. There was a lot of additions. I was able to do a lot of different types of filters and things like that, things that would just get sort of complex and weird if I were to do it in the game.
The biggest problem that I had with that, and it was, I gave Battlefield 3 as much of a chance as I could, but if you've got a browser window open, you're trying to find a server that 5 or 6 of us can join, right? Typically, there's a group of 5 or 6 of us that were always like, hey, let's go join, let's find a server. So you browse and find a server. It's like, hey, okay, yeah, we got it. Now you got to relaunch the game. Everybody joins that server. The game has to launch and load, then connect to that server, and the odds on there still being those 5 open slots when you all get logged in is it was never good. There was always someone's like, oh, now the server's full.
Yeah, you're right.
Every time.
You're right.
It made it difficult to want to play that game.
You've got great points. Once again, you've got great points that I can't really argue against.
I hate having points that are great.
Yeah, you're right. I think it would be a good compromise to maybe open up some sort of frame within that server, the same way that some source games do. When you get to the server, they have like a HTML page inside a little frame. Maybe have something like that and have the server browser right there, because I think the web page did offer advantages. The ability to iterate on the server browser without even having to update the game was a really good thing. But then you make great points about especially about not everybody being able to get into the same game once you formed a party, and that was some bad times. I definitely remember that. But I don't know that flexibility where you can iterate on the server browser so quickly without having to issue out a patch. There's a real strength to that.
The flip side of that argument, though, is that, and I look at, I'm going to put Call of Duty on a pedestal here. Their server browser, you queried the master server, you got your responses of who was there and what, and you could filter those results. You could also refresh it, and it refreshed the same as this. The way that they did it through that web-based UI, it was slow. The server browser update was horrendously slow.
For Battlefield?
For Battlefield, it was. I don't understand that at all. It was that way with Bad Company 2 was that way too. It was just ridiculously slow.
Battlefield, Bad Company's server browser was horrible. Was horrible to me.
But I had that same problem in BF3, that's web based, and it was the query times were ridiculous.
I felt like they were fast enough for me, but then again, maybe I'm thinking about it like nostalgically, because it's been many months since I've played.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you could be right. I don't know. I like the approach. I don't think it should be abandoned completely. I think it should be revised. And that's probably where I'll leave it.
I'm going to fall back on Old Faithful. If it ain't broke, don't fuck with it.
Well, the Bad Company
I tell you right now, it's broke. Be fucking with that shit, because it's broke.
All right. We've gone a little bit over our time. You guys have anything else you want to bring up? Briefly?
Don't do drugs.
3 things.
Yes, that's important. I had 3 things very briefly, and I thought these were all gaming related, so they're worth talking about even quickly. The first thing is that over the weekend, I saw, or maybe even a couple days ago, I saw some news that there's a person in Texas who got jailed for making a Facebook comment regarding a League of Legends game. So this guy has an argument after a League of Legends game on Facebook with somebody he's playing with. The guy says, "Hey man, you're crazy, you're insane," and the guy responds, "Yes, I'm insane. I'm so insane. I'm gonna go shoot up a school full of children and eat their hearts." And then he says, "LOL, just kidding." And so some lady sees this comment, probably sees it out of context, calls the police, and this guy gets arrested, and he's been in jail, and he's facing 8 years in jail for making a sarcastic Facebook comment.
The lesson is, you should know your friends on Facebook or not use Facebook.
Yeah.
That's not even it. There's just so many people that will do anything to get there. And you know what? That woman that reported them or whatever has probably been interviewed. She's had her 15 minutes of fame. And society nowadays is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You know what? This is not the world revolving around you. It's the other way around. Stop fucking, people need to realize they are not the center of the universe. They may be the center of their own universe, but there is a whole extraneous I don't know, last time I saw you were getting a little pudgy in the middle, so you could be wrong. It's seriously, I'm disgusted by humanity.
Yeah, so I think it's a brief commentary on how crazy people are that they can't sort of get a joke, and secondly about sort of what you should be the context you should be carrying out your arguments about games in, because apparently if you do it on Facebook, you might be arrested and be facing 8 years in jail for a joke.
I've always said that getting into an argument online is like competing in the Special Olympics. Because it really doesn't matter who wins, you're both still fucking retarded.
That should be quoted.
Have I offended anybody?
that probably will be quoted. That'll be one of those old proverbs. The second thing is that Valve says Dota 2 is coming out this summer. I'm not really a Dota fan, but I think it's worth mentioning for people who've been waiting for access for a long time. So sometime this summer.
I heard Half-Life 3 is going to be announced at PAX Prime too.
A lot of rumors actually this week about that. That was funny.
Yeah. So people that care about Dota, there you go. It's you'll probably be able to access it now or soon. They've actually added tutorials to the game too, which is something I've been waiting for since I've got no real clue about how to play. And then the last thing is that Google supposedly is coming out with a game console. They're developing an Android-based game console.
Ooh,
I don't understand why is this a big deal? I mean, Android, Google put out Nexus 7, which sucked. They put out the Nexus phone, which sucked, and now they're going to put out a console?
Well, it's a
Google, yeah.
It's a big deal.
Google.
That's what we need. We need the Ouya.
Ouya, yes. I think it's a big deal specifically because of things like Ouya and GameStick and Game Pop and all these other sort of attempts at Android consoles. Google has probably been eyeing this and finally said, you know what? Well, we are the main curators of Android, and we could probably do a better job if we've got access to much more in terms of resources. Both for software developers and hardware developers, and they could probably squeeze in and become the sort of that de facto fourth console. I guess it depends upon how much weight they throw behind it, but they could potentially sort of come in and be right alongside Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, and now you've got this Google console.
You mean as opposed to their tablets and phones?
I
mean, what was the purpose of that?
They're competing in the race. I think Google is as smart as the people they have working for them are. They don't know what's going to ultimately win out, and I think they're just trying to sort of get their hands involved in everything, and whatever wins, they're already there. So I mean, as an example, they've got Android and they've got Chrome OS, and they've said sort of publicly in multiple occasions that we think both approaches are worth pursuing, and they don't know which one is ultimately going to be the successor. So they're on both fronts, Chrome OS and Android, and I can see them involved with phones, tablets, and now possibly a game console.
They're gonna have the Ouya that's gonna allow you to watch the TV that you pay for.
Oh, no, it'll be over the Google Fiber.
And yes,
they have their own TV. Remember Google
the
TV?
Google Dark Fiber. Oh my goodness, it's all coming clear now. No, it's not.
No.
So I don't know.
Today, only people that work in the red Google section can play the console.
Yeah. Well, it'll only be released in certain areas of the country, like Kansas.
Yeah.
The Google Rock.
So hopefully we can hear more about that. Maybe the rumors are exaggerated. Maybe it's nothing. But I think we'll see. We'll see what Google comes up with, whether it's worth paying attention to.
When will we know? Did they say?
No, this is. I've seen a lot of different articles, but it all ultimately goes back to a Wall Street Journal source.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
Which are always right.
It's okay.
Okay. And on that, I'm going to wrap things up. Okay, good. All right. I am going to thank our host for taking the time out to chat today. Thank you, Ham, for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And thank you, Stryder, for joining us.
It's always an adventure.
And I'm going to unthank those who didn't show up. Anyway.
You consider yourself unthanked.
All right. Fine.
Like friending someone on Facebook. You've been unthanked.
All right, finally, I'm going to thank you, the fans of MODSonair.com, and the subscribing members of MODSonline.com. And until next week, go out and play some games and have some fun and enjoy the summer. Thanks for watching this week, and come back next week when we will broadcast another live show. Details for this and all past episodes can be found at MODSonair.com. We welcome your feedback via email at mailbag@MODSonair.com. And please consider subscribing to MODSonline.com to support our show. The opinions expressed by individuals on this program are not necessarily the opinions of our sponsors, owners, or partners.
And Mrs. Cow, take that bag off your udder. You're a beautiful girl. You live in the forest, so why don't you just let it hang out?
Yo, put that bag back on!
What was that?